Listening for planes, trains, automobiles, and bees, quite literally. Hey, good people, Batavia here. Welcome back to my garden. Plane, helicopter. Welcome to my garden, my Chicago garden. I am in a really unique time in the season. So some of y'all know that I planted my summer plants pretty late. Well, technically, my spring garden went in late. In turn, my summer garden went in late, and here we are as summer is winding down. And I'm at the beginning of seeing some of those summer vegetables really come in. So my first eggplants, my first summer squash. Luckily, I've had some weeks of enjoying some of the cherry tomatoes from my tumbling tom plants, but we're just the beginning of getting like full-size ripe tomatoes. And that's okay. I know that typically the way that I've planted, things pick up towards the end of the month and kind of go full steam ahead coming into September. And that puts me in a pretty unique position because I have a little break in the action. I can actually reset some of my garden spaces. And I want to chat today about actually needs to be reassessed. There are things I'll be harvesting today that they're either past their prime or they're right on time. There are things that I need to do to some of these garden beds to get ready for the next growing season, which is such a treat because not only do I get to enjoy these summer plants as the season winds down, I actually also get to begin with my fall plantings. So let's dig in. Okay, Doug, so we've spent some time in this raised bed this season, everything from fertilizing, thinning carrots, to harvesting the very first set of onions that were in that raised bed and some beets. Today we want to pull these onions where the neck is bent. I'll leave the ones that are still straight up, and we'll see how much space we're able to clear out, along with checking some of these carrots. You know, harvesting is one of my favorite parts. It's like a thank you for all of the work you've put in. You're starting to enjoy the first of many things for the growing year. The first tomatoes, the first cucumbers. These are things that for me, and especially this year, I've had to exercise great patience with, but it's just a joy to see them pay off. So I had to get into my garden gear. I normally work in the garden in the morning. I'm the freshest, I'm the best version of myself in all things in life in the morning. In the evenings, I'm dragging myself out. The bugs are, kind of ferocious. But I don't know, these are maybe like overnight bugs because they are just nibbling away at me. So I have my garden sleeves on, put my garden bandana on, and I've started to pull these onions. And now I am rethinking things. So originally, I thought I would gain the entire 2 beds. 7 feet by about 4 feet in this bed, which I will ultimately empty all of the way, 4 by 4. So that's a great growing space for fall. As I looked on the other side, there's some carrots that are climbing out of the bed. So I'm definitely going to pull those today. But there are some others that are maybe in this row that I may leave to let grow a little while longer. So what we may have is kind of a mixed bed where we're planting some things anew and we're leaving some things that are still growing in place. I think it's time, although they're still pretty, to pull all of these middle row carrots that flowered. I did let's see if we can look. I ended up tying them up a bit. Like, this is what some of them look like. And so these are not fit to eat. So I think I'm going to clear this, and I know that that's going to pull an entire row out for me. So I think we'll be okay. It may change what I plant in this space based on what's happening here. But let me go ahead and get busy with pulling the rest of these onions that I want to take today, and then we'll determine what to do with the carrots. I have a bucket of water that for the carrots I do pull today, I'll put them in so they can continue to be hydrated. Things like the leafy greens that I'll be pulling, I'll harvest those last, only because, while I do have a bucket of water for them, they of course will start to wilt before anything else. Really anything with leaves on. I actually have some beets too that I need to pull, so those are going to be treated like carrots and harvested and sitting in some water until I'm ready to take them in the house. This is really a full waste, other than the beautiful butterflies that came out of this. One nearly red carrot. Looks like there may be 1 or 2 viable carrots. Again, these flowers are not what you want from your carrots if you're growing carrots for the carrot's sake. This is ultimately trying to complete its life cycle. Carrots, which then in year 2, if they were able to live, it would produce seeds. But in my climate, these will die back with the winter. So it's a thing of beauty when a space opens up. Kind of a quick housekeeping item. For my brassicas and anything that's subject to the cabbage butterfly, I use some sort of hoops and then netting. I used to use tulle fabric, and while it's effective when it comes to covering the plants and protecting the plants from the cabbage butterfly, ultimately the cabbage worm, it never would last from one season to another, as you would expect, not really developed for outdoor use or garden use. So between everything from like its delicateness, the sun rays, the wind, I would always get tears in it, and that's really not going to be to your benefit when it comes to protecting your vegetables. Now I have insect netting, and it's done a fabulous job from season to season. I'm just basically using a 10-foot PVC pipe. It's a half an inch thick, and I cut it down using a PVC pipe cutter to the size that I want. I rotate some of these PVC pipes around so you'll see different sizes, and it was just the size I thought I needed when I started. These are probably cut down to maybe 7 feet, maybe shorter, where I think the ones behind me are almost the full 10-foot length. And then I can't think of the name of them, but there's a fastener that I have that's connecting it to the raised beds. When I'm inside of like a raised bed, like in the front yard or in the cage baby, I can plot the PVC pipe using rebar, so I don't really have anything to connect it to necessarily, so that works for me. I created the low tunnels, the hoops, in an effort to extend the growing season from fall into winter with the intention of putting plastic on it. But I've been able to repurpose it for kind of all season growing when it comes to covering my brassicas and any other plants that kind of fall prey to the cabbage worm. As I'm preparing for what's next in this growing space, 2 sets of activities need to happen. One, and I'm going to ask a question of y'all, I need to pull some plants behind me. And it's always been tough for me. Even going back to when I was really planting and growing in one season, and that was the summer season, plants stayed until the weather killed it. So my question is, especially if you're growing in multiple seasons, kind of what's your rhyme or reason for when a plant is pulled from your garden? You know, in this case, of course, I have the cabbage that it's time to harvest it, you know, so it's kind of that single crop, that single production, that single plant. But for things like my collard greens, for things like my tomatoes and the cage baby, I've struggled when it came to getting closer to the end of the season and whether or not I should leave them in the space or whether or not I should pull them. Now my collards back here, it's actually easier because I'm looking and I know how collard greens grow, and they're not going to produce like I would want them to. There are a couple of younger plants that I'll leave, but all in all, this space can be better used, and I don't want to hold myself back by trying to hold on to something that really just isn't serving me well, right? That's one thing, the decision on what stays, what goes. Y'all tell me, you know, how stern you may be in your garden. The second thing, this is just a general practice, I want to make sure this garden has what it needs when it comes to growing what's next. In this space, these beds come up about 11.5, 12 inches, and I probably have 2 to 3 inches of a gap between the soil line and the top of the bed. That could easily be filled with mulch. I actually don't have that much mulch right now, so I'm thinking I'll add some soil as well as a bit of compost. Both of those I basically buy bagged. So soil isn't always needed in my growing spaces, like in between seasons, but I typically would come back in and add compost. That's kind of a standard. Add a granular fertilizer. So that's kind of just my general rule of thumb now. It hasn't always been, but for the last handful plus years, that's been my approach, and I've really felt like it's benefited my garden and the things I'm growing. So we'll top these beds off. We'll get prepared for what's likely going to be direct sowing of things that again will benefit from the cover that I'm just going to leave on. We'll decide what's going in the bed that currently has the rest of the onions and the rest of the carrots, but for now we have a space with, again, we'll open up that space and be able to grow. So one of the challenges with mixing a bed like this, where I have a vegetable in every other row, a different vegetable, so onions, carrots, and so on, and specifically for this type of vegetable, I was intentionally letting this bed get a bit dry because I didn't want to have the onions get wet, because I knew I'd be harvesting them. But I think I've done a disservice to some of my carrots, so I'm going to try to be precise in watering the carrot row that's left and leaving the onions to wrap up. We'll see how it goes. If I were to plant in this bed, or a bed like this again, onions and carrots, maybe I do half of the bed is carrots, the other half is onions. That would allow me to better manage kind of the watering needs, or even manage the maintenance of it. We shall hopefully get another year to fine-tune things. And of course I could pull all of these carrots and just be done with it. I'll have quite a few veggies to consume in the coming days, so I am managing this with what's going to keep long, which carrots will. Let's not pull it out of the ground until I really need to. And in this case, I don't need to. I can spot pull carrots as I'm making meals, pull a couple here and there. As my grandfather used to say, this is dry as a powder house. All right, I got some beans to pick, and I have to go over to my mom's and we'll pick up the rest when we pick up the rest. These things are loaded down. Thanks so much for spending some time with me. And as always, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to drop them below. And I hope you'll come back to join me as I try to wrangle in some of these summer plants that are starting to take off. And as I begin to plant out my fall garden, it has the opportunity to be the biggest fall garden yet. See y'all in the next one.